Hey, I'm Matt Valley. Welcome to episode 123 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories of the insights and advertising folks that you trust. Why do I say advertising folks? Because today we have Jim Lake from Michael Walters Advertising here on the podcast. Welcome, Jim. So let me tell you something really cool about Jim. Jim works for Michael Walters. He's been there for over 30 years. Up or out, as they say. Michael found his way up. He's the president at Michael Walters Advertising, so that's great. It's one of those great Chicago advertising companies, classic institution, great clients like Hunter Douglas, Paul Mitchell, and of course, over 2 decades with the Chicago Cubs, right? That's quite an impressive record. Excellent. Now, here's what's really fascinating, though. Would you believe, whether you know Jim or not, would you believe that he was named a 2023 Songwriter to Watch by the Nashville Songwriters Association? This is just last year. So here he is. He's president at an advertising agency. He's a songwriter writing songs, doing all kinds of cool stuff. That makes for a great episode. So looking forward to talking about all that and more today. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Well, thank you. I think you make me sound a lot more interesting than I truly am, so I appreciate that, man.
Well, I have to say, there's something about serendipity here, right? So I'm like, I was asking myself, where do I know Jim from? How did we first meet? The answer is we met in March of 2010. That's when we connected on LinkedIn. So always connect with the people that you meet on LinkedIn. I was at MSense at the time. We were using brainwaves to measure response to advertising. And so I think I came by your office and had a chat about that. I don't know if you remember that, but here we are, and I'm glad for it. So,
Yep, and I've always made it a point to keep, interesting people in my life. So, I think that's why we've been connected all these years.
excellent. All right, so let's talk advertising. It's always good to have people, like usually we have insights people, but advertising is obviously adjacent, is right in the same mix. And is always a useful perspective. So tell me how you first got into advertising and a little bit about your journey.
All right. Well, without going, into too much detail of my childhood, I will say I got into advertising in 1977 when I walked out of the movie Star Wars and said, I want to be a movie director. I was so blown away by the worlds they created and the, things that I had never seen before. And that's what got me in the direction. And life didn't take me to Hollywood to become a big time movie director, but it did take me into advertising to where I now make 30-second movies. And it's always fascinating to me where, in Hollywood, you spend 10 years to get one movie out, yet in what I do, I do, 15, 20 different commercials a year. But the process is exactly the same. You have to come up with the story, write the script, cast it, film it, edit it, pick the musical score. You really have to, it's almost more challenging sometimes because nowadays I don't even have 30 seconds to tell a story. I've got 8 before someone's hitting the skip button, and so it's just been a really fascinating journey. And then into the business side of it, quite frankly, kind of happened because we were a small shop that didn't really have anyone to handle the business side of things. I always just wanted to be a creative person. Fortunately, my brain works kind of left and right sided, and it went from there.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm just kind of curious, outside looking in, anyone who doesn't work in advertising, it's so glamorous, the whole Mad Men thing, but even at a smaller scale, the people that you meet, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going on site. I've got this shoot in New Orleans coming up.
Yep,
That
exactly.
sounds familiar.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
so I'm curious, what are some of the most rewarding or interesting projects you've worked on?
I mean, it's a number of different things. Filming commercials is one of my very favorite parts. Just coming up with what is the concept, what is the direction, the campaign that can really suit a brand, and presenting those ideas and seeing people like we just presented to a potential new client earlier today, and he was literally like, I can't think. I'm so excited and energized by the ideas that you've presented to me. And that's what we try to do is, I don't mean to sound flippant, but everyone thinks they're a marketer. And in a lot of ways, everybody, the fact that we can bring different ways of looking at someone's brand that they've never thought of, even though they work on that brand every day, is pretty rewarding. And then, from the other side of it, I've always liked the rewards. I love when we do a campaign and we see a client's sales increase or web traffic increase or whatever their KPIs are. I still get a charge out of seeing that we can get consumers to purchase our clients' brands through the messaging and the stories that we're telling.
Yeah, I can 100% relate with that. I think that's always what's kept me going in the insight space as well.
Yep.
Sometimes it takes just a little bit longer to get that proof, to get that story. But once you learn it and you can actually see the tangible impact of the work that you do, that gives me a kick and keeps me going.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting working with data and working with insights where now I think the industry has gotten to a good balance of let's utilize the data and the insights to build a brand and, obviously to track effectiveness of the tactics. But at one point, the pendulum swung to let's do everything through data and analytics and not bring any emotion or storytelling to the equation. And that quickly found out that doesn't work. And so I think we're at a
Yeah.
good balance point in the industry now that we're utilizing data to say, hey, who is our market, et cetera. But there's still that human element. I always talk about the Dos Equis campaign where if you only did data, you're not going to have a 65-year-old man as your spokesperson. You're not going to have him say, I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer
Yeah.
Dos. He sort of broke every single data rule, but because it was a really engaging, different campaign, it worked.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Just one other question because I think it's
Not my campaign, by the way. I got to put that caveat
all
out there.
right.
Not my
All
campaign.
right, fair enough. Fair enough. But kind of interesting when it comes to data and insights. It feels like over time, it has been democratized to some extent. It feels like years past, there was an advantage for, let's say, really big brands, really big advertisers and holding companies. They had access to more data and could therefore potentially produce better work. But it seems like that there are useful data that flow, sort of to everybody now. I'm curious to know from your perspective with an independent agency, has that changed over time?
Yeah, definitely, like you say, in favor of smaller clients, smaller agencies. There's elements of it that I absolutely love, because like we do on the media side of things, we do both digital and traditional advertising. And I love taking the digital learnings and applying that in the traditional world, finding where is that little pocket of interest that we may not have seen if we were just trying to take a broad reach approach, or how are we with our A/B testing and fine tuning of messaging, how are we then taking that and utilizing that when we do a more expensive undertaking like a television shoot or a larger scale buy. So I love starting with smaller digital tactics so that we can really see what's resonating with the audience instead of
Yeah,
us. We don't do focus groups and that kind of thing anymore with brand campaigns. We put them out there in social media and we put them out there in the digital space. Let the market tell us what resonates with them.
yeah, do and learn. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Excellent. Well, I do want to talk about the songwriting thing, but we have been talking about advertising, so I'm going to take just a quick pause. Recent listeners know that I've been taking this Magic Mind performance enhancement shot. I'm going to take a pause and take it right now. So it says right on the label, it says "Do more, stress less." That's something that I want. Works for me. If you seek that as well, then this might help you out. So I'm going to go down the hatch.
I always feel like you've had a magic mind, Matt, so it's a perfect concert for you.
Take it. I'll take it. Thank you. A little bit of copy on the fly. So, all right. So here's what I know. I know we're kindred spirits because we both play the drums. We have for a long time. But you have broken beyond the boundary, and you have this amazing story of becoming a songwriter. Um, a little bit later than a lot of people do. So tell us about that story.
Yeah, definitely a lot later than people do. It was funny. I was laughing as two drummers. It's appropriate that we're podcast number one, two, three. So thought the
But
symmetry.
kiss.
Yeah, exactly.
Of
Yeah.
course.
No, it was something I never envisioned happening in life. Like you mentioned, played drums all my life, been a musician, been a music connoisseur all my life. Always walked around with little scraps of paper with me of this is an interesting phrase, and never really did anything with it. And about 7, 8 years ago, when my mom died, she was the person who introduced me into music with Elvis and Patsy Cline, Willie Nelson, all that,
Yeah, good
you know,
stuff.
dancing around the house, which I was mortified at as a child, but now I look back, very fond memories. When she passed, I'm the youngest of four boys, and my mom always joked that she was crazy because she had four boys. So she was
Yeah.
a very tough, stern disciplinarian. And so writing her eulogy, it was like, well, I can't say I miss mom's hugs and chocolate chip cookies because everyone will, say who is that you're speaking of. So, I put together her story of why she had to be tough and why she had to lay down the law and be the law, quite frankly. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought her story is sort of a universal story. I'm here because she kept trying to have girls. And then I ended up having two daughters. They now have three granddaughters. So, my life went from 100%, alpha male who's the head of the pack to I'm a
Yeah.
much better man now because I'm surrounded with women. And fortunately, my mom, lived long enough to see a lot of that. And I thought that's a pretty universal story. You hear so many people of oh, are you going to try for the boy? Are you going to try for the girl? And so I really thought there was something there. And I thought I'm going to take a lesson from her and actually sit down and finish something for once instead of snippets here or a chorus here. I'm going to write it. And so I did and spent a couple of years looking for musicians that could help me bring it to life. And it was an interesting, frustrating experience. And kind of like you talked about, staying connected. I finally reached out to one of my jingle writers. I was at sort of the end of my rope, and he said, "Well, I no, I'm not that kind of songwriter. I'm a jingle writer, but I know a guy who I think your sort of personality and story that you want to tell, he'd be really good at it." His name's Brad Nye, and we got connected and just connected like that. And some 22, 24 songs later, here we are still, putting something out. I try to put out two songs a year, every year. So
Oh, okay.
it's been
And
a
that
wonderful process. And the song that I wrote for my mom was called God Gave Her Boys. And it's actually, it's won some radio competitions. It got mentioned in American Songwriter magazine, things like that. So it really resonates with people. It is not what's current on the radio today. So chances of you hearing it by a big country star are slim to none. But you know what? It told the story the way I wanted to tell the story.
You know what I have to say? I mean, that's the kind of song that gives you the chills, especially knowing the story. It is very sentimental and a real tear jerker in a sentimental way, right? It's a really
Mhm.
well written ballad. And it's kind of like that old school country that just really
Exactly.
makes you feel something. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's why I'm drawn to country music because they still
yeah,
allow me to tell a story. I'm a rocker at heart. I grew up with
yeah,
Rush and Sabbath, and
dude, me too.
but they don't really tell stories anymore. So this is just a kind of the genre I fell to.
Yeah, yeah. For me, just a quick interjection on this. I after my run of being a thrash metal drummer and then a punk drummer when I was in my 20s came to an end. I kind of became a jobber because I enjoyed playing, and I was playing in this rockabilly band. And these country guys came up to me. They had this band called the Naked Cowboys, and they came up and they said, "Hey, we do 4 sets a night at VFWs, all like 60s, 70s, old school country.
I love that.
Um, and we kind of like your feel. We got a gig coming up in 3 weeks. You want to do it?" And I said, uh, "I'm not coming to your place to practice. Give me the CDs, and you have to trust me." And they did, and they had this big old Silver Eagle tour bus with all the airbrushing. It's a longer story, but they were so in love with country music, and I did it just for a job, but they really converted me. I mean, I could really then understand, okay, I get this space now.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of been a lover ever since. So
Yep. Well, also too, as you get older, man, it is hard to play as fast as you need to play and
I still
something.
try. I do. I still try.
Not me. I can't keep up. I used to be able to drum Rush 2112 note for note, and not a chance am I trying that these days.
Yeah. All right, cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So what you said, you've got, is it lakecountrysongs.com? Is that the
Yes.
site? Yeah,
Yeah.
Lake Country Songs. I'll make sure I include that in the description here. But yeah, there's like 20, 22, something like that songs on there.
Yeah, and it's an
It's
interesting mix. So like half of them songs that I've written, as a character, telling a story, whatever. And then maybe not quite half of them, but like a third of them are just write a song for my wife for our anniversary.
yeah,
Tells the story of how we met. Write a song. I wrote a song called "I Walked with You" for my daughter for her wedding for the father-daughter dance.
yeah,
So there's some. I don't know if they'll resonate with anyone other than me and a couple of people in my life, but that's okay. I believe in writing for yourself. And if it's a true emotion, there's going to be a universal connection to it
yeah,
anyways.
for
Because
sure.
that's the whole reason I got into it, because I spend my day writing for other people, writing about their product, their brand, their market. This I get to do. This is my little passion project that I get to do just for myself.
Yeah,
Really for myself and my wife and my daughters, because my wife is my biggest muse. She just inspires me every day. She encourages me to keep doing it. She puts up with the nonsense that goes along with it. So, I'm the face of it. She's the wind beneath the wings, to quote a song.
yeah, yeah. That's great. Well, I love it because there's a nice variety, right? So there's good ballads, but then with "Hit Me Up" and "Silver Bullet," there's some party tunes, a lot of fun, upbeat stuff too. So really good stuff.
Well, it's funny. Silver Bullet came out, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to pitch this to Coors because that's what it's about,
Yeah,
an ode to a 16-ounce Coors Light.
yeah.
And right when we finished it, they dropped the term Silver Bullet and they won't use it anymore because of the negative connotations maybe with it. And so they're like, great song, or are completely uninterested. And then Hit Me Up came out. I just did that one last year, and it was funny because I did about 3 or 4 songs in a row that were pretty emotional ballads, and finally people are like, "Are you okay?" And I thought maybe I just need to put a good old party rocker out there and stop these tear jerkers for a little while.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so it seems like you said, you've been writing jingles. This has been so your professional career, and maybe gives you a leg up. But tell us what you learned from the world of advertising that you've applied to songwriting.
I think the main thing I've learned is so my whole career on the advertising side of things, I have preached forever that everyone shops with their head and they buy with their heart. And, I believe the best brands make that emotional connection, and really tell a story. And so I've built my whole career on that. It's really kind of the only brands I'll handle now is brands that want to tell a story, build that connection. If you just want to do lead gen, I'm a commodity. I don't think I'm the right person for you, or we're the right agency for you. If you want to really build a brand, build lifetime, members, lifetime brand ambassadors, that's what we do. And so that translates over so well to songwriting because I get to tell those stories without having to now put the hook on it of, hey, here's what I want you to buy. Now all I have to do is say, here's what I want you to feel. And it's been a really nice tie-in. And I
Yeah,
would say on the songwriter side of things, what helped me, I think, more than anything was being a drummer because it's so easy for me to feel the structure of a song, feel the syllable count, feel where an emphasis should be on a word or a note.
Yeah.
So because anybody can, I shouldn't say anybody, but there's a big difference between writing a poem where you have no real restrictions versus writing a song where there is a structure that you need to follow.
Yeah. 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 That's totally true. That's totally true. And just by being a music fan, some of it is so innate. Like I played two current bands that I play have song structures that are really pretty formulaic. You've got verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, solo,
Yep.
fade out chorus, something like that. And I can listen to it once and then play the song from then on because
Yep.
your body is
Yeah,
attuned to that pattern, right?
absolutely. I almost named instead of Lake Country Songs, I almost called it VCBCBC. See if everyone got that from the verse chorus structure. But
That's awesome. I love it. Cool. All right. So it sounds like one thing you've learned, yeah, you've learned a lot about yourself in terms of advertising and what kinds of advertising and brands that you can really help. But as you look into the future, what do you see? Is AI or anything disruptive, or what does that look like from your perspective?
yeah, definitely. There's a lot. So AI, it's funny. We always joke in the industry, if you're a writer who's scared of AI, you're not a good writer.
Yeah.
Same kind of design. If you're a designer who's scared of AI, you're not a very good designer. They're never going to overtake it. They can build upon it or adapt it, etc. But one of the things years and years ago, and I always forget if it was Steve Jobs, I think it was, where he was talking about every business looks at, okay, what are the trends and the changes over the next 10 years? He said people forget to look at what's not changing over the next 10 years
Yeah.
when you're building a brand or building a product. And, so I always step back and think, okay, what's changing is really the delivery mode, and so how people are consuming media, where people are consuming media. What hasn't changed, and I believe will never change, is people want that human connection. They want their emotions touched. They want to be made to laugh or smile or cry or be warmed or get goosebumps. That never goes away. Even in a virtual world, you still want to connect with other
Right.
human beings. And so I always start there. Of course, you have to look at what are the tactics and what are the delivery channels because how I can tell a story is dramatically different in a 4 seconds versus 30 seconds or a bill or a tiny little display ad at the bottom of Spotify versus where I've got real estate and time on a website, whatever. So you do absolutely have to look at the delivery channels and tactics, but you have to touch people human to human to really get a story that resonates. And I don't think that will ever change. I hope not. If it does change someday, then that's probably my day that I just wave goodbye to everybody and let the next generation go.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. So this is I think the world of media is so interesting now because we all have infinite choices, right? Infinite choices. And we all consume a lot of media.
Oh
To
yeah.
be honest.
Yep.
Sometimes it's for enjoyment, sometimes it's for inspiration or whatever. As you think about the landscape of media that's earning your time, what does it look like?
So it's funny, you had asked me that question. And I was thinking, can I call nature a media? Because, if I'm looking for inspiration, relaxation, whatever, it's nature.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh-huh.
outside in the world, and I don't think we do enough of that. I mean, you can kind of see over my shoulder. I make sure I have live plants and windows and sunlight and all that. But really, then I think I don't know if I can name a specific medium as much as use it as escapism. So I love watching
Yeah.
football because you don't think of anything else about other than that the Bears have sucked for 30 years and look like they're continuing on that path. You're just in that moment with one of the other things I really like about watching sports is it's still a collective view. Again, I'm
Yeah.
not 20. I remember everybody watching The Wizard of Oz, the one night a year it was on television, or
Yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or whatever. And we don't have as many of those, but I really like collective shows, like, and I don't watch some of these, but like I love that my daughters, they're on the phone the whole time they're watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and they're on social media with their friends. And while things are kind of splintered, shows like that, programming like that kind of pulls people back together again. And that's what I really like, where it's a collective view and a collective experience.
Yeah, man, I could talk about that all afternoon because I've just been exploring that and constantly telling my kids, well, I had four channels available when I was growing up, and so we all watched the same cartoons before we
All
went
right.
to school in the morning, and then we talked about it in homeroom or whatever. Uh,
Yep.
but it's interesting to see your kids, find their own tribes, and they're often
Yeah.
defined so much by the media they consume that at least within their pocket, it's a collective experience. So it's,
Yeah,
it's an
definitely.
interesting thing.
Definitely.
That's sort of tribal. Yeah.
And I love the fact that media is getting more customized. It used to
Yeah.
be you looked at, adults 25 to 54, like if you turned 55, you just
I'm
disappeared
out.
from the ether. Yeah, exactly. I don't exist anymore. But now that's really changed because of the delivery channels and because of the
Yeah.
algorithms and programmatic, programming, et cetera, that everybody has programs, has experiences that speak to them and resonate with them. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Super cool. All right. Well, you know what's coming, Jim. If you've ever seen an episode of the podcast, we haven't talked a whole lot of rock and roll, but we're going to. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what
Maybe.
the answers are going to be, but this is my own, private pleasure of this podcast. So I got to know. Let's say, Jim, you're stranded on a desert island. Could be Goose Island, and you can't get off. Right?
That would change the answers.
You're right. Context is everything, right? Okay, so you're stranded on a desert island. You have three records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are those records?
All right. So I did look at it within context, and I thought of like the emotional swings that you would have in this sort of isolation. So number one, if I wanted to have like a fellow stranded traveler with me, I would bring Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ziggy's journey is a lot like being stranded on an island. So
Yeah,
you have kindred spirits with you.
for sure. I like that choice. It's a fun choice. All right.
Yeah, and then really as your emotions ebb and flow and you want to change them, if I were down and I wanted to get, hyped up again, I would bring Pearl Jam 10.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and if I woke up and just wanted to enjoy the sounds of the waves and just be mellow and relaxed, I would bring Van Morrison Moon Dance.
Hey, check it
See, that's
out.
the ultimate Sunday morning record.
That's right. It's like rinse and repeat, right? Day after day after day.
Exactly. And
Uh,
all three of those are albums that I've heard, literally hundreds of times and haven't tired of. So I wouldn't see that changing.
Yeah, a key criterion, if you ask me. If you've
Absolutely.
ever you got that
Absolutely.
album that you loved once, but it's starting to get on your nerves, you don't want that for the rest of your days. So,
Yeah. To clarify, none of my own songs would be joining me there. They're in my head.
all you hear are the mistakes. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. Exactly.
Uh, all right, Jim. This has been such a great chat. Let's definitely next time I'm in Chicago, we'd love to get together. And of course, if you find your way to Dallas, you got a pint waiting for you if you if you have a few minutes. So uh,
Perfect.
great to chat. Let's stay in touch. Rock and roll.
Oh, that's right. I see. I throw deuces, so we're close.
That works. That works. All right.